Hey guys, Kev here, and I am going to be doing a blade battle for you. So, this is an interesting one for me. Similar price point, similar size, similar ergos, a lot of similarities here. And I really didn't put this one together until the other night when I was like kind of looking at both of them. I was like, wait, this would be a really good blade battle, right? So what we have here is the Demko knives AD 20.5. And mine obviously has some aftermarket parts on it and such. I cannot be judging it based on that. I'm going to pretend this has the stock scales on it, which are gray FRN, plastic essentially, okay? This is the Mallery Designs Phorus. This was a pre-order that came out recently. And, yeah, this is an awesome knife as well. I love both of these knives in their own way. And we're going to see what happens in this battle. So, let's get it on. I don't know if I can think of a cool name for these, for the battle. You know, I always try to think of something, but I really got nothing for this one. So I'm just going to call it the AD 20.5 versus the Phorus. Are you ready to rumble? All right, so we have our score sheet here. We have our categories: materials, price, perceived value, aesthetics, ergos, cutting, carry, sounds, action, fit and finish, and of course left-ability. I always like to mention when I do these battles, if you are right-handed, you can remove this category and figure out your totals yourself and see if the winner changes. But for me, I have to add that in because I am, of course, left-handed, and I'm guessing a good amount of my viewers are also left-handed, so I want them to feel like they're getting the right judgment, if that makes sense. We have the AD 20.5 and the Mallery Phorus. Let's get into it. So first up is materials. Oh, and the way it works is you get a point for winning a category, 0 for not winning, obviously. I do have ties occasionally. I try not to do them, but, you know, some things are just ties. And then I add them up at the end. Whoever has the most points wins. So, materials. Let's start off with the AD 20.5 from the Demko guys. So on this one, you're going to have AUS 10A steel, which is really womp steel for me. And then you're going to have absolute trash plastic Grivery scales. This is the biggest upgrade I think I've ever done to a knife aftermarket. Like going from just trash plastic scales with this cartoon logo on it to having Arctic fat carbon as the scales and the backspacer. And then, of course, I also have a KME Edge from my buddy Joe. It's just a huge upgrade. I've also added skiff bearings in there. It comes with shitty steel cage steel bearings. So I upgraded this knife immensely in terms of materials. But sadly, you can't do anything about the blade yet. So this is AUS 10A, and you're kind of stuck with that. But anyway, sorry. Materials, plastic, and AUS 10A. The Phorus here, you get S35 VN steel. You get marbled carbon fiber, which is absolutely stunning. I would call it shred, but you can call it marbled if you want. Steel liner lock, titanium clip, and backspacer. This is a clear win for the Phorus, in my opinion. If you wanted to compare them after the fact, obviously the fat carbon is sexy as hell, right? But it costs a good bit to add that, right? Like, so total, what am I into this knife? $150 for the base knife, and then you're talking 110 or 115 for the fat carbon scales. So what's that? That's 265 plus 25 for the backspacer. So what's that? $290. This is almost a $300 80/20.5 with AUS 10 steel. It's kind of sad, right? Anyway, price wise, this is 150 retail and this is 175. So I obviously have to give the price to the 80/20.5 because it's cheaper. So those first two categories kind of just evened out, right? You get better materials here, but you get a lower price here. Perceived value. This is where we get to kind of put those two together. This knife, I'd say it has the market on fire right now. So whenever they come out, people are gobbling these up for $150. But I would not say that people are looking at it like it's worth more than that, if that makes sense. Like, I don't see a bunch of these selling for way over retail or anything. They're selling for retail, as far as I can tell. But they're just selling a lot. So it's a popular knife, but it's not like there's more value in it than retail. I don't know if that makes sense. The Phorus, $175 on the pre-order, and I feel like we talked about this other night on a podcast. I don't think it's worth more than like $200 if you were gonna get, in the secondary or something. But I think it's definitely got a value that is a little bit higher than its retail cost, if that makes sense. So I do think this one is perceived to be a little bit higher, if that makes sense. Especially in their base forms. You would definitely expect to pay a bit more for this knife than that knife, considering the plastic and everything. And this has titanium S35. So I'm going to give perceived value to the Phorus. The only sort of counter I could have to that is these sell out instantly when they come out, and this didn't even sell the pre-order. But now that they've dropped, now people really want them. So, you know what I mean? Anyway, aesthetics. So this, again, I have to judge the base form of these knives. And if you look at them, I think with the fat carbon scales, it really gives this knife a makeover. The normal G10 or FRN scales on the 80/20, while this knife is good looking in my opinion, I really like the slot. I love a good clip point. I love the way the shark lock is on there, the spine here. It's not like sexy, it's like, yeah, that's a pretty cool looking knife, right? It's unique. But it's not like, damn, that's sexy. Now, with these scales on it, it's like, damn, son, that's a sexy knife right there, right? But to me, the Phorus is just like, hot damn, sex machine. You got shred carbon fiber on this epic sheep's foot blade. Guys, I love a sheep's foot. To me, this is like a thinned out, stretched out sort of Evo 2.0, even though it's the same size. It's just feel like the hole is a little stretched out. And it's super thin. So to me, this is definitely a sexier knife. So aesthetics are going to go to the Phorus. Ergos. Another good category here. So the 80/20.5, you get an excellent grip back here. It's very comfortable to me. My thumb lands just past the shark lock onto this jimping, just extremely comfortable. Then you have a choil up here, sort of. I don't even know what, I guess it's a choil, but anyway, that's what you use it for. And this is absolutely comfortable for cutting and whatnot. I have a large glove size hand. This knife fits it perfectly in both grips. Just really, really nice. The Phorus is a lot slimmer in terms of like this way. It's probably not any thinner that way. But I can also get a full grip back here. My thumb lands up here. No jimping or anything in the way. Just really comfortable. And then look at that generous choil. Choke up to here. And I just have excellent control. Again, excellent ergos. I'd say size-wise, they're equal. Pretty much the same, right? 3.5 inch total on the blade, but with the choil and everything, I guess you're going to have a little less blade length on the Phorus, although it doesn't really look like it. Maybe the slightest bit you're losing. And then I guess it's a little bit longer overall, but that's it. So what they did was they fit more blade into the handle, essentially, on the Phorus. And then they added that choil, so you end up with about the same cutting edge on both. Anyway, I think this was about ergos, right? Yeah. I got to give it to the Phorus. And the only reason, honestly, is it does not have jimping and it doesn't have a shark lock. So for me, the only things that I feel sort of negatively on the 80-20, not even the jimping, because I kind of like the jimping on it, whereas over here, it doesn't have it, but I don't need it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with jimping if it's good on a knife, but I don't need it. So for me, it's either way, right? The shark lock is sort of in the way. You know, I'm kind of like feeling it, going over it. Like, it's just sort of a bump that's in the way that on the Phorus you don't have. So it just equals, this one, to me, has better ergos. Ergos, Phorus. Cutting. So, this one's easy. This goes to the Phorus easily. It is super thin, comes down full flat grind, and it is absolutely a slicey machine. And it's S35, heat treated properly, just a great steel. It's gonna hold that edge for long enough, for me anyway. And the fact that it's so thin, it's just gonna keep slicing. This thing, the edge is not horrendous, and I have a secondary one on there now, so it's really sharp, but it's kind of thick behind the edge to begin with. It's not a full flat grind. It is a flat grind, so it's a saber grind, I guess. The main issue, and it's not even like super thick. I mean, it's thicker, obviously, than the Phorus here, but not by much. It's just, I think my issue with it, it's just the steel choice. The AUS 10A just sucks, in my opinion. This is the third edge on this knife, guys, and I barely like use my knives. You know that. I use them, but I don't use them for like hard use, so the edge shouldn't be getting dull quickly. I'm cutting open boxes and cardboard and paper and shipping labels. I'm not cutting through cardboard constantly. I'm not cutting through trees. I'm not cutting through, you know, bushels of hard shit that could cause issues, that could dull a knife easily. So it shouldn't dull out that quick, but this thing went through two edges so fast, it's stupid. So this AUS 10A, and I've heard it from other people, this AUS 10A is just not holding up as well as we would want it to, obviously, considering the price tag of the knife. If they would have just made these in S35, it would be amazing, honestly. I already really like this knife, but if they gave me a premium steel on the 20.5, I'd be so happy. I'm starting to see exclusives popping up at Blade HQ and stuff, but they're still in AUS 10A. Anyway, cutting is going to go to the Phorus. Phorus is kicking ass right now, by the way. Let me get a sip of my LaCroix. Tangerine, baby. Carry. So this is a very, very, very tough category for two reasons. This carries lefty. It actually comes with a separate clip for lefty carry. This carries fantastically, even though it's right-hand only. It actually is tapped in there. You can see the screw holes. It looks like it's tapped for lefty, but they didn't actually add the cutout. But this carries so well. It's so slim. This clip is amazing. It has really light retention, but it's so long that it works. The reason that I'm actually going to give this to the Phorus, and I know that sounds so counterintuitive as a lefty. Like, it's a lefty clip, Kev. What the hell are you talking about? Like I said, this carries like a fucking dream. It's so thin, lightweight, and that clip is really good. And it goes pretty damn deep, too, right? This does not sit deep at all. You have this much of the knife sticking out of your pocket. And the clip sucks. Like, okay, first off, it's just too tight to begin with. So then you got to mess with it yourself to get it to the right tension you want. So you got to bend it and shit, and you want to make sure it doesn't tap, but you want to make sure it's tight enough. So I have it to where it goes in pocket easily. But these fucking thumb studs get in the way all the time. So, like, me trying to get this in my front left pocket is, like, it's just a fucking nightmare. And depending on the pants I wear, this fucking tiny lip right here might not get over it. And it's just a pain in the ass. It really is. Once it's in your pocket, yeah, okay, it's fine. It's pretty lightweight. It's, you know, I don't care that much about how much is sticking out, but it just kind of sucks. The thumb studs really get in the way. I mean, you can see why. They stick the fuck out. And then I'm like, if I don't put it in on the right angle or whatever, then that gets caught. And then it's just like a pain. It just sucks. It really does. It really does. Whereas this is just so easy. I just put it in my pocket and we're done. Doesn't go anywhere. Doesn't shift. Doesn't whatever. And I can barely feel it. So I got to give it to the Phorus, even though this has a left-handed clip. I totally appreciate the fact that they ship a second clip in there for lefties. I love that. Thank you so much, Demkos. It's just not the best clip, you know what I mean? I am waiting for Lynch Northwest to finally drop the deep carry lefty clips, and that might change this category. But again, I'm having to do all these things aftermarket to this knife. This basically isn't even the same knife anymore. Like, you know, especially once I flip the clip, then what? We just have the blade and the lock. But it's so cool of a platform that, like, we don't care and we do all those things, right? Anyway, carry goes to the Phorus. This is a runaway win right now. Sounds. Okay, that one's easy. Demko all day. I mean, you're talking shark lock, clickety-clackety. You know? This is the one knife that I really actually like to slow roll. You know, because that's how the knife is sort of made to be opened, is like a slow roll, I think, because there's no fucking detent, which we'll get to in action. But yeah, it's definitely going to be this one because it just sounds awesome. It just has the shark lock to me has always had firearm sort of sounds and smells to it. And yeah, it's just awesome. This isn't bad. Really got a good acoustic on the flick out, but it's kind of just another knife, right? Whereas this is a shark lock, baby, and you know it. So easy win for the 80-20 there. Action, you know, that's another one where, as I hate that this does not have a detent. It's my biggest gripe with this knife. But it reverse flicks really well, especially the 80-20.5. The 80-20 for me was just a little too big and bulky for me to, like, really get good reverse flicks. I always would worry that I wouldn't get it all the way and then it would slam down on me or something. But I never have a problem with the 20.5. Always flicks out. You have thumb studs. You have a hole. You have all these different ways to deploy this knife. Slow roll it out. You have the shark lock itself to just flick out like a button lock sort of, or an axis lock, right? The shark lock itself is part of the action. It's so cool that it has it. So for closing, you get such a nice drop, right? It's basically, it is drop shut, guillotine shut, especially on these skiffs in there. It's just amazing. Yet I have absolutely no play in any direction. It's locked up like a goddamn bank vault. Another thing I love about knives when they're freaking locked up tight. And this has that excellent freaking action on this knife. Only downfall, no detent, right? You can do that and have it come out. So you got to be careful, man. I've had people say they've jumped off a counter and the knife is like opened up on them. You know, you got to be careful. Hold the knife. Do whatever you got to do. Now, the Phorus is no slouch. I mean, the detent from Artisan is absolutely dialed in. They nailed it on this detent. You know, if you flick it from the bottom of the hole, a little less needed. If you flick it from the top of the hole, if you flick it from the top of the hole, it really fires out. You can thumb flick it. You can slow roll it out, right? I don't know if you can flick it without the hole. Let me try that again. You can flick it without the hole, but you can ring finger flick it from down there, middle finger flick it. I mean, you can do all the things, right? And then right-handed, you can disengage, drops to your nail like that, couple of shakes. It's not a guillotine, for sure not a guillotine. At least the way I have it, there's no blade play, there's no lock rock, and it's a little bit of a shaker, right? If you wanted to lighten it up, like from factory, they come with a little bit of blade play because they want you to think it's more drop shut than it is, I guess. I don't know. It's a little more drop shutty from factory. Comes with plastic cage bearings, I believe, proprietary size or something. I wasn't able to replace them with skiffs. Not the skiffs I had anyway. You know, standard 5mm or 1/4 inch did not fit in here. So I might try the smaller bearings at some point. But anyway, the action on this is incredible. It's very good. I really, really love the action on this. The reverse flick, very satisfying because of the detent. But it just isn't as fun as the shark lock. I don't know. There's just something about the shark lock on this knife that is just awesome, right? So I got to give it to the 80-20.5 on action. Fit and finish. So, that is a good one. So I will say, this knife came dead nut centered. And honestly, fit and finish wise, quality is excellent. I think out of the 200 he got, he said one was bad that he had to, he couldn't ship out because the detent ball broke off or something, which was his fault, I think he said. But there was one QC knife that had a problem from factory. I have heard some people say that they have voids in their carbon fiber, like all over it. I think I might have some tiny ones, but like nothing that bothers me. And I kind of understand that with this type of micarta or carbon fiber, you're going to have some voids. But this stuff looks fantastic to me. We're basically flush here. The only issue I guess you could say is right here where that backspacer dips a little bit. And it's not quite lined up with the scale. See that gap? To me, that doesn't bother me at all. I didn't notice it till somebody mentioned it. Clip is excellent. You are looking at T6 on the screws down there, which kind of sucks. T8 on the pivot. But overall, I mean, I think lockup is great. I think the fit and finish is really good on this thing. Great grind. Came super sharp. So I really have no complaints about this, especially on a $175 knife. The 80-20.5, it came with those Grivery scales, which are absolutely garbage. But like the fit and the finish is really good. I mean, having this shark lock, I believe from listening to Demko, it's both hard and super easy at the same time, because I think what he was saying was you can have a wider range of tolerance for the parts on the shark lock because of the way it's made, so that it still works perfectly, even though there can be the slightest variance in pieces, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. I've taken this apart a few times already. I believe that's a T10, and then you have a T6 back here. So both of these are T6. This is a really tough one. I might honestly have to give it a tie, because hold on. I might have to give it a tie, just because I can't really think of one being better than the other. But the other factor to it is maybe the feel of the knife, because like I will say that the 20.5 feels much more solid, feels much more sturdy. Like I would probably trust this knife for a longer period of time or for harder use stuff than I would this one, but that's not fit and finish, right? This one does have a little bit of like CJRB budget knife liner lock feel to it, if that makes sense. Like that sort of, I don't want to say cheap, but it just has that little bit of a budget feel to it, where even with the FRN, this knife just feels so solid, right? Damn. I'm going to give fit and finish to the 80-20.5, I think. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I didn't have a great explanation, but I just think it's a more solid build, be the way I'd put it. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just because it's thicker steel parts that are being used. It just feels more secure, sort of. I don't know. Lefty-ability. Lefty-ability. So this one I also, I guess, have to give to the 80-20.5. And the only reason for that is it comes with the lefty clip and the lock is ambidextrous. The Phorus is super lefty friendly, guys. I love this knife. It's easy to disengage left-handed, but it is a right-handed lock, right? So like you can't do this with the knife because it's a right-handed lock. But being an inset liner lock, it's super easy to use. There's no lock bar pressure issues. Nothing really is different. And the clip is so neutral that ergonomically you don't feel a difference. Cutting obviously is the same. So this knife is super lefty friendly, and I recommend this wholeheartedly to lefties out there. If you can get one of these, it's an amazing piece. But of course, I have a lefty clip, and I can do everything the same way that a righty can, right? Because you just have this shark lock back here. So right-handed, you're just doing the same thing. Basically like an axis lock or whatever, and your fingers aren't in the path of travel. There's no worrying about that. You're not going to have it drop to your nail or anything. It just works much better left-handed from factory. Like that's the way it's designed, ambidextrous, I guess you should say. I should say, compared to the Phorus. So the Phorus went on a run early on, and then the 80-20 came back at the end. So let's see what happened here. I honestly, when I started this, assumed this would be a runaway win for the Phorus, in my mind. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it was a win for the Phorus, but not by a huge margin, by 1 point. And if you're right-handed, you could remove this, I guess, and it would be, then it would be 6-4. So, yeah, never mind. So, yeah, I mean, I thought that was a good battle there. I think these are comparable knives in a lot of ways. I mean, size, ergos, use case, I suppose. But they're also very different. You have an ambi shark lock, keep your finger out of the way type knife with no detent sort of thing. So if you're into axis locks and, you're into compression locks and shit like that, this might be a better knife for you, right? Whereas this is going to be your inset, really sleek liner lock with fancier materials, very, very nice droppy action on that liner lock. Really good reverse flick on this knife. Much better than the shark lock because the no detent thing. You really gotta commit when you flick this knife. So very different, but very similar. And I think that was a fun one for me anyway. So thank you guys. I love you all. I really do. I appreciate all your support. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. Hit the like button, notification bell. There's a join button down there for memberships. I also have a bunch of links in the description. I have a Teespring store where you can get shirts and cups and pillows and shit. There's shirts for women and for my big boys out there. Also have links to a bunch of companies you can get discounts with. Feel free to use that stuff if you want. If not, no big deal. But anyway, I love you guys. Let me know what you think of this battle. Who do you think should have won? Which knife do you like better? Do you have both? Do you prefer the Grivery over spending money to pimp it out, especially since you don't get better steel? Do you have a Phorus? Because they're kind of hard to get right now. There's only 200 made, but it's one of the best knives out there. I've gifted multiples of these. So, yeah. Anyway, I love you guys. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will catch you later.